Oh, you need food. Fine, I guess you can.
Excuse me.
Sorry, this is gonna make some noise.
I'm very busy.
Oops, oops.
Hello, this is the Church of Black Coffee. We are talking about philosophy, specifically a situation in epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, referred to as the skeptical paradox, or something like that. So, here's the situation. There was a guy named Descartes. And Descartes wanted to come to understand what it is he really knew. Like, what did he know for sure? And he realized that a lot of what he knew relied on his senses. So, vision equals knowledge was kind of the premise he was starting from. So if you see something, then you know that it is there. I see this whiteboard, so I know it's there. You see me, so you know I made this video. However, Descartes don't get chihuahuas. Just don't get them. Descartes recognized that your vision can be flawed. So for example, dreams are false visions, hallucinations, just plain old mistakes. Like, have you ever seen somebody waving at you and then you wave, but they're really waving at somebody behind you and you're just an idiot? You made a mistake. You thought you knew someone was waving at you, you were wrong. Vision does not equal knowledge because vision is fallible. So, those things you see can't in themselves constitute knowledge because you could just be wrong, you could be dreaming, you could be hallucinating. So the question is, if your vision can be wrong, can you rely on any of your senses? Have you ever heard something that didn't actually exist? Or were you ever mistaken in what it is you heard? Have you ever reached your hand into a box and felt what seemed to be witches' eyeballs and they just turned out to be peeled grapes? Your senses can be wrong. Your senses can be fallible. And so Descartes came to realize that if that is the case, then the only thing that he knew to exist was Descartes. Nothing else in the universe needed to exist except for Descartes and an evil demon. Who was tricking Descartes by making him think that this whole universe existed, so manipulating his brain into thinking there was stuff. When in reality there's nothing in the universe except for Descartes and this evil demon. Now really, if you look at it closely, Descartes didn't need the evil demon. It could have just been his brain alone in the universe, just manifesting reality. But that's the direction he went with it. He died about 600 years ago, so I'm not able to ask him any more about what he was thinking. So, I lost my paper towel. So, 600 years later, they made a movie called The Matrix. That's based on this idea. So the premise of The Matrix is all of existence is a computer simulation. That's the general premise. Keanu Reeves discovers by accident that the world he lives in doesn't actually exist. It's a computer program run by aliens who are using the energy humans produce by living in order to power machinery. Somehow getting over the fact that the amount of energy it would take to keep a human alive would always be greater than the amount of energy a human produces, but whatever. So, this kind of sets up our skeptical paradox. The paradox is essentially this. It's possible. It's entirely possible that everything you experience on a daily basis is an absolute hallucination, a computer simulation, manipulation by a higher intelligence. There's ways of making it seem that everything that is happening to you is real, when in fact it isn't. It's entirely possible that your entire existence and everybody you know and everything you do every day doesn't, in any meaningful sense, actually exist. If that's the case, if it's the case there is no sun, much less a sun that rises in the east and sets in the west, if it's the case there is no earth, much less a city that you live in, if it's the case that you don't have parents, then how is it possible for you to know anything? And here's the thing, it doesn't actually have to be the case. It doesn't actually have to be the case that the world is a giant simulation or hallucination or anything like that. It's enough that it's possible for you to not know anything, and here's why. Here's the general breakdown of what knowledge is. So, I know a proposition when I believe it, I am justified in believing it, and it is true. Now there is a lot of conversation about B. I am justified in believing it. What could it possibly mean to be justified in believing something? Not really a clear answer, but there is an argument against being justified in this regard. So, I am justified in believing P for proposition if there is no strong evidence against P. So let's take that as a premise. You're justified in believing something, a proposition. Take a proposition, any proposition you'd like. Grass is green. I am justified in believing P, grass is green, if there's no strong evidence against P. There's not really any strong evidence against P. I'm looking at grass right now. There's some right outside my window. It's green. You've seen grass. What color was it? That's right, it was green. That seems like a lot of evidence for grass being green. So what would be the strong evidence against P? Yeah, my handwriting's bad. You're going to have to get over it. Someday you'll go to college and you'll notice all your professors' handwriting is bad. The reason is having bad handwriting means you're real smart. I didn't make it up. It's science. There is a real possibility everything I experience is a hallucination. That's true. It just is true. There's a real possibility that everything I experience, everything you experience, is some kind of hallucination, manipulation, simulation, pick your ation. There's a possibility that reality as you believe it exists doesn't. 3, 2 is strong evidence against P. 4, if 3, I am not justified in believing P. So let me walk you through this one more time. I'm justified in believing a proposition. There's no strong argument against the proposition. I've left the proposition vague on purpose because it applies to all propositions, but you can pick one. Dogs have 4 legs. I have 2 eyeballs, whatever you want. 2, there's a real possibility everything I experience is a hallucination. That's true. It just is. People hallucinate. People are wrong. Simulations exist. 3, this is a strong evidence against me. So there's strong evidence against every proposition, and that strong evidence is this all might be a hallucination, a simulation, or just a mistake of some kind. So given that that's the case, it is impossible for me to be justified in believing any propositions, because it's always the case that this might be a hallucination. That is sufficient evidence to deny my ability to be justified in believing a proposition. Therefore, I can't know anything. This has not gone very well. I'm going to redo it. This one I might need to scribble.